This is a PowerWorks podcast short with Glenn Power and me, James Pikeway.
Are you finding you got your seasonal stuff back in as well? And
Yeah, the AC stuff's gone silly again. We finished an evaporator on a Kia Mojave on Thursday, and then Friday morning we had a Chevy Spark dropped off. Same deal, evaporator leaking. And that's just going to be the way it is now till September.
Yeah. Dashboards come out,
Yeah.
evaporators pulled out, new ones put in.
You know, we've talked about these before. You always worry about the plastic breaking when you take them apart. It's just a matter of explaining the risks to the customer.
Yeah.
You know, I think most people will take a bit of a crack that we can then subsequently repair than sweating in their car for 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's undrivable without AC here. You can't drive the vehicles without AC.
It's getting there.
Especially if you wear, for example, if you wear formal attire for work.
You're wearing a suit.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
Absolute disaster. So, you know, that's just one of the usual typical things. We're getting a lot of people now, because I think people are keeping cars longer. We're doing quite a lot of upgrades. So infotainment stuff, you know, Apple Play.
Okay. Putting new stuff in.
Android Play, cameras, front and rear view. And technology is relatively cheap.
Yeah.
People are keeping their car and thinking, you know what? I'll just spend a bit on this. We've got a dashboard out of a Cayenne that we're recovering in leather, and we've got the same car we're doing the front seats. You know, these things are actually a little bit more common now.
Yeah.
So that's something that I would say is, in my 10 years here, when I first came here, we were doing them all the time. People were spending money. People had a bit of money, and everything was really vibrant after the 2008 disaster. But now, over the last 5 years, that kind of died, particularly the last two. But no one can go and buy a car anywhere. No one wants to risk buying a car anywhere.
Well, my mother-in-law's buying a car back in Canada, 4-month waiting list.
Crazy.
And she's that classic person. She's got a lease. She's got a leased vehicle right now. She's going to buy one outright at this point because it's just not economical with the mileage, with the leased item that she's got or the lease plan. And I think the dealer wants to get her leased car in so that they can get some used product that's pretty well nice and easy driven. And they're looking at, 4 months to be able to replace that vehicle. And that's, a big North American market.
Mad.
I'm thinking, really? Like, you have no vehicles on the lot? Nope.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about it, right? I mean, it's crazy, but it's, like I say, it means people are caring for their cars a bit more, and that's obviously good for us. Some of the jobs we don't necessarily like to do everything. There's some jobs that are just not worth, they're just not worth doing.
Yeah, some of the wiring, if you're doing some of these things and pulling stuff in and around and through, and it can be a real pain in some vehicles.
For example, if somebody comes and says, look, I want a full 360 view camera on my car, and, okay. But that means mirrors, because there's got to be a camera in the bottom of both the wing mirrors, harnesses, control units, programming, front and rear camera, new screen, because the cameras, even the cameras you buy on Amazon now and Alibaba and all these sites, they're sort of $10, $15, $20 cameras that you can buy. They're way better than what they were fitting on vehicles in the factory 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
So you've got a deal where the screens aren't capable of supporting them, so then you've got to upgrade the screen, and if you're upgrading the screen, sometimes it's not exactly the same size for the aperture in the dash, so you need the surround trims. And sometimes you just have to say, look, spending $15,000 on this car is probably not advisable.
Yeah.
It's worth maybe $30,000, and whilst we're at it, we've just checked, and there's a couple of thousand in brakes come in, and there's $5,000 in suspension there, and there's a bit of an oil leak, and maybe put it towards something else. But 7-8 times out of 10 we'll get on with it and do it. We had a really nice SQ5 in a couple of weeks ago, and we fitted the blind spot assist to it. The only headache with that was, this is something that, working for VW, I could not get my head round, but it's just where we are, unfortunately. The vehicle didn't have it on from the factory,
which is odd,
but that is the way it is. So on the Audi, there's a light in the mirror. So you've probably seen it on, like, the Mercedes. They have them on the actual mirror glass, and it flashes red to say there's a car in your blind spot. Don't change lane.
Yeah.
On the Audi, there's just an orange signal light in the actual casing of the mirror, not on the glass. So there's a hole in the mirror cap for the cars that have it. This car didn't have it, so there's no hole there. But it's an SQ5, so it's the matte chrome mirror cap. So the customer wanted a mirror cap with blind spot assist for his car. Audi wouldn't sell him one because here they need the chassis number, and the chassis number gives them the one without the hole in it.
Yeah.
You know, I need that. But I know how ETCA, the part system, works, and I know there'll be the variations. They'll be greyed out.
Yeah.
They'll be able to see the part number variations, but they wouldn't sell him one. So he had to buy one off of another vehicle chassis number, which wasn't an SQ5, so it came matte black to be painted, and we can't get that paint, so we had to wrap it, and it wasn't quite the right colour. But you know, I think that's about a typical daily challenge, really. But that was quite an interesting one to fit. Everything was there on the car. We just had to change the door control units and put the wiring in